This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
All right, Practice Squad, episode 16. Stroz, it's going to be a little bit different. You want to know why?
Tell me why.
Because I might need you to keep me on track today.
You sound a little bit lubricated.
Well, so we agreed to drink before this show, but you sound sober as hell.
I am right now. I've got a liquor cabinet right behind me, so.
We are in quarantine, so I don't know why. But it's going to be a fun episode. It's just going to be a little bit different because I don't know where I'm going to take us. I do know, coming up a little bit later on, Stroz has been on the weirdest date I've ever heard of in my life this week. We're going to talk about that. And Tom Brady to Tampa Bay. I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of him going anywhere but New England. We're going to talk about that as well. But Stroz, this first segment, I don't even totally know where this is going to go because I haven't really talked to you about it in depth. You asked me the question, did the Lions have their worst free agency period in all of the NFC North? I assume that means you think they did?
Yes. Well, pretty damn close. We're gonna leave it like that because listen. So I know I'm fence sitting right now. Yeah, they had the worst. You know what? I'll go out on a limb. They had the worst free agency period of any team in the NFC North thus far. It's not over. I get that, but they have had the worst.
Can I ask this?
Free agency period.
In my mind, we have to include trades. Is that fair?
Yeah.
The Bears traded for Nick Foles.
I think that helps their quarterback situation.
Oh, I hate you so much. I would legitimately rather have Chase Daniel than Nick Foles.
Really?
Yes, Nick Foles is garbage.
Nick Foles at least won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Do you know the last time he threw more than 7 touchdowns?
Tell me when.
I think I was in college.
So what was that, like 3 years ago?
Hold on, I'll pull it up. But dude,
was that like 3 years ago? With your young ass?
No, it's like 4 years, dude. Dude, Nick Foles is he's a backup quarterback who had one great season with the Eagles that was completely out of nowhere. I don't know how the hell that happened. He had an incredible playoff run. But let's be real. That's not who he is. He's had way too long of a career to suggest it's possible that's who he is. Okay. So his last time throwing more than 7 touchdowns was 2014. That's 6 years ago, Stroz.
I think Nick Foles getting worked into the Bears offense helps push Mitch Trubisky. Look, I think we both agree Mitch Trubisky's not a very good quarterback. I don't think either one of us want him under center for our team. But I think you bring Nick Foles in, and I think that helps get the most out of Mitch Trubisky so you can figure out what you're going to do next season. And if anything, you've got a highly capable, highly reliable backup who has been there and has done that. Nick Foles has more Super Bowl wins than anybody on the Lions.
Oh, how cool. He can't throw 8 touchdowns. Dude, I literally don't care about what anyone else in the NFC has done. Also, I want to say this. We have this fun fight every single time we talk about the Lions. We're because the thing is, I think this regime sucks.
I do too.
I think the offseason's been underwhelming.
I do too.
But I don't think it's been trash. It hasn't been terrible. I think they've gotten a little worse at basically every position. Now that is before the draft, and they have 4 picks in the top 85. They should be expecting to come out of the draft with at a bare minimum 3 starters, and maybe even 4 with 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. But I look at the Lions offseason at this point and say they're basically the same team. They might be a little bit worse, but I don't think it's significant. And so, what has anybody else done in the NFC North to impress you? If you're including trades, the Vikings traded Stephon Diggs. I know we traded Darius Slay, but I think trading Stephon Diggs is just as big.
Look, you traded Stephon Diggs, but look at what you got back in return. You got another first rounder as well as multiple other draft picks. On top of all that, I think Minnesota, I don't necessarily like the extending of Kirk Cousins because what has he done? But I think moving on from Stephon Diggs, who was really unhappy there, he let everybody know. I think you move from him. You bring in a guy like Tajay Sharp, who's, he's not great. But listen, just wait. He's not great, but he'll be a valuable piece in that offense. On top of that, you get those extra draft picks. I think Minnesota had a much better offseason than your Detroit Lions. I think what your Detroit Lions have done is basically made lateral moves. You've moved on from guys just to bring in the same guy. You know, we talked about Kennard, and you go out and you grab Jamie Collins, and they're essentially
hold on. No, that's not fair. I have my concerns about Jamie Collins because he wasn't great on the Browns. But, like, Jamie Collins' high seasons are like elite linebacker level. So the ceiling of Jamie
Collins...
Collins...
He's only been able to do that in New England. Do you think he's going to be able to do that here? Because bringing in players in New England has worked out so well.
But he's only played two places, New England and Cleveland. And I'm sorry, failing in Cleveland is actually, like, it is more obvious than failing in Detroit.
I just think that the Detroit Lions have created their own problems and then have utilized free agency to try to fill those things up and cover them. I mean, look at what the Bears did, right? So the Bears go out, they sign Robert Quinn, they bring back Danny Trevathan because I think you have to count bringing in your own guys or re-signing your own guys. They also, I'm running through their free agency tracker here real quick. They also,
I'll tell you this, Lions have been the most active.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been close.
But the problem is, what have they been active with? Is there an impact player that they've brought in?
I think they brought in multiple impact players. Whether or not you think they're good enough, I think Danny Shelton, Desmond Trufant, Jamie Collins, I think those are all impact players.
Desmond Trufant's a step backwards from what you had with Darius Slay.
That's not the question you asked me.
Danny Shelton is probably, and we might agree on this, Danny Shelton might be the best player that they've brought in through free agency. Everybody else, like I said before, is a lateral move. You moved on from a guy to bring in a guy. Look, you brought in Big V. You let go of Ricky Wagner. They're the same guy. They're the exact same guy. On top of it, you got worse because you let go of Graham Glasgow, so now you don't even have a right guard.
It's incredible how obvious it is that you let the glasses that you wear of negativity around the Lions. It's incredibly obvious how much you let that affect everything. To, like, just outwardly say that Big V is the same guy as Rick Wagner is based in nothing. To be skeptical about Big V is fine because the guy was a backup. But you know what? Neither of us know freaking anything about Big V. All we know is that he was a backup that everyone expected to become a starter. To hate on it that strongly is baseless.
So you think you're going to get more production than you got from Rick Wagner?
I don't know. That's the difference between me and you. It's okay to not know. Your point of view is I hate this regime, so they can't possibly do anything right.
They haven't done anything right. That's my whole point. It's been one failing after another. Look, this is something I want to go back to something that you and I have talked about repeatedly on this podcast. Do you still feel like this regime is done if they don't have a winning season this year?
I will say this. I was thinking about this today. Mm-hmm. I think that there is potential. It scares me, but I think it's true. I think there have been multiple people to suggest the teams who are going to do well this year will probably have had a little bit more stability from season to season. And it makes sense, right? Like the whole fact of everything happening with the coronavirus, we're probably going to have less off-season programs than normal if the season even starts on time. Right? It's just so teams that know each other are going to have an advantage. And the Lions have had a lot of turnover. I mean, you're talking about Danny Shelton, Big V, Desmond Trufant, Harmon, the safety, is a very possible starter. Jamie Collins. And I've said at a minimum, you should expect to get 3 starters in the draft. That's 8 dudes. The Lions are probably going to have 8 dudes minimum turnover. And that's not even addressing the fact that, like you said, Graham Glasgow's gone. So now all of a sudden, you're probably going to have 9 new starters this year. So it feels like there's a bit of a scapegoat. And it's not a person, but it's a thing. And I have a little bit of concern about that. I was still adamant prior to what we're seeing recently. You know, as we get deeper into this thing, like Stroz, it's every week into this, the coronavirus and everything that's changing. Like, we're living in a different world week to week, right? Like, that's how dramatic everything is. A week ago, I don't know that we thought for sure that NFL offseason programs would be delayed. I think right here, right now, like that's becoming the expectation that there's not going to be a lot of offseason work.
Oh, dude, the NFL draft might not go off as scheduled. The GMs want everything pushed back because they don't have the capabilities or the ability to even go out to look at guys. So like they're pushing extremely hard for the NFL to move the draft back. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that everything that is supposed to happen is going to be delayed.
So because of that, I do think it is more possible that expectations are changed because there's a very obvious scapegoat. If this was a normal season, well, like I'm not in love with Martha Ford. I think that she gets a little more hate than is fair because she did make a quick move to fire Schwartz and Mayhew. Mm-hmm. She was willing to fire Caldwell, who she said she loved. So I'm not willing to sit here and bash her, but I think they've created a very easy scapegoat, and I don't think it's fair. But I do think it's a real possibility. I do.
Yeah, at this point, I'm 100% all in. These guys are coming back no matter what, and I think that you see it with the moves that they have done with their offseason because there's been nothing really overwhelming. Like you said, if anything, it's been extremely underwhelming. And you move on from guys that you had who I think we both could argue that there was some talent on this roster, right? And you go and you basically grab system guys. That's why they go out and they grab all these New England Patriot guys. They're system guys. This is obviously the direction that Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn want to move in. They want this to be the Midwest version of New England, and by doing so, they've got to bring in all these guys who have played underneath Belichick and get them to come in here and I guess, for lack of a better term, change the culture. But I just don't know if any of these guys work outside of New England because you haven't seen it. You know, I think if Detroit can go out and grab a guy like Logan Ryan, I think he's the big name free agent who's left out there who could really help solidify this secondary. You go grab Logan Ryan. I think that is an impact player. That's a guy who has proven that he can play outside of New England, and he could come in and really help solidify that other corner position and help elevate that secondary. And then I think when you go into the draft, it's a lot of, hey, we've got to work on the front seven. Let's add pieces to that front seven. Let's bolster that front seven. Because it would, at that point, feel like your secondary has been fleshed out. I think that is the guy. If they can go get him, they've got the money. If they can go get him, I think it kind of, I don't want to say it changes the perception of what this offseason has been, but I think it takes it from a place where it was extremely mediocre to a place that I think it gives you a little bit of hope as a Lions fan.
You know what I think you need to look at? When I say it's underwhelming, basically what I mean is when you look position by position, I don't think they've gotten significantly better. Mm-hmm. I don't think they've gotten significantly worse. When you look position by position, I think they look about the same as last year. But very few teams turn over as many key players as the Lions are. So in a world where you believe in Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn and you think that they know what they're doing, boy, have they got their guys because they replaced basically half of the starting lineup. Neither of us believe that. And that's why overall I call it underwhelming. But they've made moves. And I do think there's value to that inherently. Even if they suck, even if they make these moves and this roster sucks, in a normal year, I think it becomes a lot harder to get away from an underperforming year. Unfortunately, they've been given a hell of an excuse. And I don't support it, but I do think it's the case.
Yeah, look, I think this entire regime has done nothing but find things to kind of fall back on to help save their jobs, right? So last year, you could fall back on Matt Stafford. What's that?
It was a fair criticism.
That's what it seems like, right? I mean, last year it was Matt Stafford's back injury. The year before that, it was Patricia's first year. The year before that, this wasn't Bob Quinn's coach. You know, it always seems like there's an excuse for these guys to stick around. And if you're a Lions fan, it has to be frustrating, you know? And again, I didn't think these guys were going anywhere when all this started, you know? I thought these guys totally had time. I thought they had at least another year. And it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere. And you can use the coronavirus. You can use.
I still don't think they survive a 2-3 win season, but I think it now becomes a lot easier to survive another 5, 6, 7 wins.
Oh, for sure. And here's the thing: I don't think this team was destined for a 2 or 3 win season. I just don't.
I don't either.
What's that?
I don't either. If the Stafford's healthy, that's not going to happen.
Right, exactly. If Stafford's healthy, this team is legitimately a 7-win team. If Stafford goes down again with another back,
and that's why you probably get another 6 or 7 wins.
I think Chase Young's a guy who could maybe win you a game or two. So it keeps you above your 3-win or your 4-win total that you had last year. You know. So look, I just see them coming back. I've been really unimpressed by what they've done this year. I really feel like as they go into the NFL draft, they have to hit home runs with every single pick. And you and I both know that's not likely. It's generally that doesn't happen because the NFL draft is a complete and utter crapshoot. So I see these guys coming back. I see them building. I see them adding to what they're looking to do for the mold of this team. It doesn't necessarily make me happy, but they're not going anywhere.
Coming up in a little bit, about 10, 15 minutes from now, Tom Brady to Tampa Bay. We're going to have to talk about that. But coming up next, Stroz went on a hell of a date in the middle of a quarantine. That's up next. Decided to join me with the drink, Stroz?
Oh, absolutely. I've got I got a little bit of whiskey. Sorry for the clatter in the background. I don't know if you heard that or not. I got stuff falling off the table here.
We'll have to see as we get deeper into this into this quarantine. Weirdly, it's changed my schedule up, but in a positive way for me. I'm not a heavy drinker by any means, but we're having a good time on this podcast, and I would not be surprised if I do this maybe a little bit more in the future. But Stroz, I gotta hear about this. You told me you went on a date to Meyer.
Bro, it's quarantine season. What
I got a couple questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, have you been on a date with this person before? Ever?
Yes.
Recently?
Yes.
How recently?
Prior
to the Meyer date.
I went on a date with this person. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. It was like right before quarantine.
Okay, that's important. So this wasn't a first date.
No, definitely was not a first date.
Okay, so all right, that calms me down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the reason I want to talk about this is, Stroz, I was invited to a Target date.
Is this because of quarantine or
no, dude? No. This is in the past. By the way, speaking of, I don't know if you saw it. I did tweet out. I downloaded Tinder. I hadn't even had it on for a while, but I downloaded Tinder just so I could put out a very fun, I guess, bio. Okay. And my bio was quarantine credentials include, and these are all true facts. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and HBO, none of which I pay for. At least a month worth of food for one person, but we can get to those details, if it gets to a date. And an appropriate amount of toilet paper. In case you're wondering, it didn't go very well. I only got a couple matches, and absolutely nobody has replied to a message.
So you're just doing this to kind of stir the pot, huh? You weren't really looking to up your love life at all.
Oh no, I was trying to convince someone to come quarantine with me, but they all decided to get.
I love it.
But so you'd only been on one day prior to the Meyer date, right?
Yeah.
Was it that good? Was that first date so good? Was that first date so good that you could do a Meyer date? Because man, I got to tell you, like.
Look, it was like I had a good time, and here's the deal. So it was I think it was Saturday. So Saturday I got out of work at 5, and I wanted to go do something. So I hit this person up. I said, "Hey, what are you doing? I want to hang out. Are you available? What would you like to do?" And they're like, "We can't.
All sorts of options.
We can't do anything." Like there's no place you can go. You can't go eat at a restaurant. You can't go to a movie. You can't really go to the mall. Like there's nothing for you to do. On top of it, it was a beautiful day. So you know how like one of those beautiful spring days. It's a little bit like spring, but it's a beautiful spring day. You just kind of get geared up. You just want to go hang out outside because the cold is finally shaking off. That's where I was. That was the place where I was at. So I was like, let's just go do something. And I was like, want to go to Meijer? Like when I was in high school, I went to Oxford High School, and Oxford ended up getting a Meijer built, and it was like the biggest and best thing that this small little podunk town ever had. Right? It never had anything huge in it, and Meijer was massive. So we would spend Friday and Saturday nights just kind of kicking around the Meijer if we weren't at somebody's house getting drunk in high school. So I was like, I don't know, whenever I default to something, like I need a place to go, it's late at night, or I just want to get out of the house, I default to Meijer. So I'm like, you want to go to Meijer? And she was like, yeah, that'd be great, because I got to pick up a few things anyways. And I was like, perfect, I do too. So next thing you know, kicking around Meijer for legitimately, it was an hour and 45 minutes, like up and down every aisle. And it was great. It was a good time.
Okay, I gotta ask. I've never been on a grocery store date.
Okay.
Do you pay for her groceries?
What's
the etiquette here?
So
you still pay for her drinks, right?
So in this situation, basically we went Dutch. We went. We got up to the register. We just put it all up there together, and we just split it in half.
This is wild for a second date.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long did the date last?
So after that, went back to her place and hung out for a little bit.
I was going to ask, that was the next question, is did the date end at Meijer?
No. Went back to her, like, we ended up buying ice cream.
You have one of the single most unique second date stories ever. You went to Meijer and then went back to her place.
And had ice cream.
Unreal.
I mean, look, it wasn't like an all-night thing. It wasn't an all-nighter because I had to work the next morning early. But, yeah, I mean, quarantine times, what are you going to do, bro? Times are tough. You got to get creative. You got to think a little bit outside the box. This was an interesting second date.
I want to share, just like, since we've apparently both been invited somebody on grocery store dates. Basically, I guess the topic is weird date stories. If you have one you want to share, at Brendan Riley _ at Adam Stroz on Twitter. If you don't have grocery store dates, totally understandable. I had been talking to a girl from Hinge. You know what's funny is after talking to this girl, it's what made me realize, because my schedule when I moved to Houston for a long time, it just like wasn't realistic for dates. I was working 5 nights a week, exclusively nights. And it was after this girl where I just like deleted the apps until my schedule changed. But we had been talking for a little bit, and we had a date planned at a bar. And I swear to you, I'm getting ready to leave. Like, I'm getting ready to walk out the door. And she sends me a text, would you be okay going to Target instead? And I was like, are you serious? That's what I replied. I was like, are you serious? She's like, kinda. And so after talking for a few more minutes, basically we came up with, she wanted to go to Target. She was no longer doing a bar. And because I only had 2 nights a week that I could go out because I was working 5 nights a week. Mm-hmm. And she couldn't do the next available night. And then she was going on a week-long cruise. I was like, I'm not doing Target. I'm not doing Target for a first date. It's just, like, I think it's weird for a second date. But, Stroz, you got to, like, agree with me for a first date. Like, would you go on a first date? And this is a dating app, right? So, like, I don't know her at all. You agree going to Target for a first date where you've never met somebody?
Oh, bro, I would totally go on a first date to Target.
Hell no.
Let me tell you why. You would find out so much about this person by just what they put in their basket that everything you needed to know, you would know. It would be so interesting. On top of that, I don't know about you, but when I go to like grocery stores or I go to Target, I like to have a good time. I like to play around in the aisles. That's why I can get lost in a department store for 2 or 3 hours at a time. I would end up going down the intimates aisle, and I would grab a bra, throw it over my head, and buzz around like a bumblebee, or just do something stupid. You got to check out where their sense of humor is, because it's got to be compatible with you. Because I don't know about you, but I'm a total asshole, and I like to do fun, stupid things all the time. And if they're not,
I like to do fun and stupid things too. But I don't think that has anything to do with being an asshole. I think you can be a good person and do fun and stupid things. I'm just saying.
That's true. You can. I'm an asshole. I can't help it. I'm sorry. But anyways.
I was like in my head, because I love pretzels, and that's like a non-negotiable factor. Like, you have to accept that I love pretzels, and most Targets have like.
Who's fighting you on pretzels?
I don't know what to tell you, man. I've legitimately told multiple girls on dates there are two things I don't share: pretzels and cookies. I will not share those two things with you.
Herpes, however, I will share with you.
Totally fine.
Pretzels and cookies, no.
I thought about telling her I could only go to Target if we could get a pretzel, but I decided against it. And she had a cruise the next week, so I was like, okay, well, text me when you're on the cruise. Maybe we can maybe we can go on a date then. And she's like, oh, no. Like, I'm paying for internet access, so we'll be able to text on the cruise. I was like, yeah, nah, I'm good, thank you.
Wait,
we're not texting.
Did she text you while you were on the cruise? While she was on the cruise?
Well, no, she said that. I said, text me when you're done with the cruise, and maybe we can, meet up after your cruise. And she goes, oh, no, it's okay. I can text during the cruise. I don't think I replied.
That seems so weird to me.
I was like, we're not talking for 2 weeks before we meet. I can't do that. I just can't. I'm too much of an in-person kind of guy. I normally, with dating apps, I don't know if you've used them at all or not yet, Stroz.
No.
I'm like 2 to 3 days worth of talking is like max. I don't want to get to know you through text, because that's fake as hell for me. Mm-hmm. I don't blame anyone else who wants to go that route, but like 2 weeks, nah, you're not texting me on the cruise. So I never ended up meeting her. I will say she had like 1,500 Instagram followers. So like, I had friends trying to tell me it'd be good for my brand, but I just couldn't do it.
Good for your brand. Who are these friends? I like them. Is one of them Jim Costa?
No, but it's one of Jim's very close friends.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So wait, so where are you guys at? Have you gone on your,
Hell no, dude. I literally, I just told you, she said we can text during my cruise, and I just didn't reply.
Okay.
I didn't even reply. I was like, yeah, that's
done.
I guess you could say I ghosted her, but I don't think you can really ghost somebody that you've been talking to over text for 2 or 3 days. I don't think that counts as ghosting.
I don't think so either. So run me through, because I've never used a dating app.
We don't have time.
I'm curious here.
Here's what we're gonna do.
Can we table this for next week?
Yeah, we're gonna get into this next week, because I may or may not have ghosted somebody. I realized as I brought it up. I told you last week I've been on 3 dates since I moved here, right?
Yeah.
All with the same person. I may or may not have ghosted her. So I'm already going to tell you right now, next week, that we're going to do that in the middle segment, and you're going to help me figure out whether or not I did.
This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait for next week.
Not to over tease, but we're going to do that next week. It's funny, too, because I was definitely going on a few dates with her while we were doing the podcast, and thought about bringing it here. But unlike you, because I didn't know if you'd be comfortable doing this, I don't have an issue bringing somebody like who I'm really dating into the podcast. But if it's new, like, I'm not going to put that on them.
Yeah, bro.
You're an ass.
Yeah, I'm an open book. So whatever you want to know, I'll tell you.
All right, coming up in just a moment. I think we've had fun here, but we got to get serious again as much as I can. Tom Brady to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Where are we at on that? I don't know if we've ever fleshed out a segment on a podcast less than this. All I want to know is, Stroz, Tom Brady to the Buccaneers. Like, wild, right? Like, where are you at on that?
Super Bowl contenders, baby. No.
Okay. I thought you were being serious for a second.
No. But legitimately, I think they're going to do some damage. I think this is going to be a dangerous team next year. Look, Tom Brady left New England for a couple different reasons, right? One, they didn't want to extend him. They didn't want to give him any more money. They were looking to move on, looking for a clean break. And if you read a lot of the stories, it sounds like a couple years ago, Tom Brady had a foot out the door and was ready to go. And it sounds like both Tom Brady and Bill Belichick want to see who can do it better without the other person. So there's a lot of ego going on here. All of that being said, Tom Brady to Tampa Bay makes a ton of sense because Tom Brady wanted weapons. Tom Brady was tired of dragging the Patriots around on his back and being basically saddled with less thans and guys who he felt just weren't adequate enough. So you look at Tampa Bay's roster, and this is just one thing because the head coach is number 2, and I think that's very important. So he gets Mike Evans, who's a savage, Chris Godwin, who's an absolute savage. I mean, you have to realize that they had Jameis Winston throwing them the ball. Jameis Winston last year threw 30 interceptions. There was a stat on Twitter, and it was, I forgot the guy's name who posted it, but Jameis Winston could have had, I think it was between 10 and 20 more interceptions. In an NFL season, you're not allowed to throw 30 interceptions, much less 40 or 50 interceptions like Jameis Winston almost had.
I think it's worth looking at. Do you know how many seasons you'd have to go back to find 30 interceptions for Brady? Last year he threw 8. Mm-hmm. If you go back to 2018, that's 19 total because he threw 11 that year. Add another 8, that's 27 in 2017. Add another 2 in 2016, that's 29. You have to go all the way back to 2015 to find 30 total Brady interceptions.
Crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So he has 2 savage wide receivers. On top of that, his tight ends aren't bad. Cameron Braith, who's the backup to O.J. Howard, could pretty much start.
I'm not even sure he is the backup to O.J. Howard.
Right, exactly. But like the one thing that Tampa Bay's offense is lacking is probably a run game, and that's just because I don't believe in Ronald Jones II. All right? Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay with Bruce Arians, who is a quarterback coach. This is a guy who will develop an offense and highlight and accentuate what you do well. And you just went through and you basically said you have to go back to 2015 to find Brady throwing 30 or more touchdowns. Okay, so this is a guy who can protect the ball. This is a guy who can air it out a little bit. I don't think his arm is as strong as it used to be, but he is most definitely death by 1,000 cuts, and he will beat you and eat you up with little dink and dunk passes, which will help open up that deep ball for guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
See, I think you have to be careful in assessing what Tom Brady is, because we know that Tom Brady isn't the elite quarterback anymore. And they won 7 games last year. The Bucs did.
He's like that tier underneath. He's like. See,
I think Stafford's that tier underneath. I think Tom Brady might be even a tier behind that at this point.
No way, for real.
At this point, he's 43, right?
He is. He's older, that's for sure. But the guy, he's still so good.
I think that you're looking at a 7-win team. Here's the big thing. Mm-hmm. I agree with you that he went to the right place. Mm-hmm. I think that in going to Tampa Bay, taking care of the ball alone will make them significantly better. I think you're probably looking at a 10-win team, which is a playoff team. I don't think they're serious threats to do anything. Now, being in the NFC is worth noting, too. The AFC is top-heavy as hell. The Chiefs are special. The Ravens are special. In the NFC, you have some good teams. The Saints are really good. The 49ers are really good. I'm sorry. I know they had an incredible year last year. The 49ers kind of, in a way, remind me of the Rams, where everyone was all on them.
Yeah.
That's not who they are. I refuse to believe it until I see it. You cannot be that special with a mediocre quarterback, which is what Jimmy Garoppolo is.
Well, let's look at the NFC South, right? So you have Tampa Bay now with Tom Brady, and they were a 7-9 team last year. You add Brady, I think that's at least 3 more wins. I think you agree.
I think it's no. I think it is 3 more. At least is a really, really a tough phrase to put there, because 3 wins is a lot more wins for one player.
Right, exactly. You look at Carolina. Carolina just traded their quarterback.
They're going to be a 2 or 3 win team.
They brought in Teddy Bridgewater. So depending on what you believe in Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know if Carolina knows which direction they're heading. This seems like a team that is totally in flux. Atlanta is a team where I'm not sure if they believe in their head coach or not. And they were a 7-9 team last year. Again, they were pretty beat up defensively, but this is a team where I'm not sure what to make of them. This is another team that I think is coming to that crossroads where they've got to kind of make a decision here. You know, either you're going to poop or you're going to get off the pot, one or the other. The only real threat in the NFC South is the Drew Brees-led New Orleans Saints, and again, it's Drew Brees. He's a little bit older as well. So you've got two older quarterbacks on the two teams who I think are going to really duke it out for this division. And I can't wait for those games. And the way I see this kind of playing out is when those two teams face up, I think they win at home. I think they end up splitting as the season goes on. So
I do want to wrap this up here shortly. I do have to ask one more question. I think it's an interesting one. Is who wins more, the Patriots or – and before I get too deep into this, I think we can both say – and you have a lot of stupid opinions, but I don't think this will be one. We don't believe that this is a testament to who's more important to the Patriot dynasty, right, between Brady and Belichick. As old as Brady is, this is not a fair time to compare it, right? You agree with that?
I think we believe that, but I think
– I just want to make sure. I want to make sure before we get into this. We both agree on that. I think some people do, they're wrong.
I think Belichick and Brady look, I think this divorce needed to happen, right? So I think they had to separate from each other. But I think the reason that they had to separate was because their egos were getting too big.
Sure.
So,
but I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to clarify. We don't believe that. I'm sure there are people who think that this year will help show us that Brady's too old. But I do want to ask, who's going to have the better year? Because it is. Personally, I lean towards Belichick being the more important of the two. Although I don't think it's dramatic. I think it was just a marriage of two special people: a special quarterback, special head coach. But who's going to have the better year, Tampa Bay or New England?
I think Tampa Bay is. I think what you're seeing in New England, I think it's a hard reset.
Yeah, they do. I kind of think the same thing. They look like – I don't think it was by default. Like if Brady left and they didn't push the hard reset, it would have been tougher. But they're just moving everybody out.
Yep. You look at everybody that they've moved on from, and unless you believe Jared Stidham is the second coming of Tom Brady – I don't necessarily believe that. I will be honest with you. Jared Stidham was a guy that I wanted the Lions to draft late last year in the draft. But all that being said, I don't think he's the guy who's going to pick up where Tom Brady left off. I think what you see going on in New England is this is a team that is prepared to lose a bunch of games next year, and they're going to go into next year's draft looking to get their quarterback or get that next impactful player to build around.
I can tell you what I've heard. Nothing inside or anything, but like I heard from a lot of Patriots people in my work here in Houston, because we're talking about Brady, obviously, that the Patriots really do believe in Jared Stidham. But at the same time, I do think what we're seeing is a rebuild. So I'm with you. I think Tampa Bay is a clear-cut playoff team. It'll be interesting to see what New England is. In fact, I think I'm more interested to see what New England is than I am to see what Tampa Bay is.
Oh, I'm definitely more interested. I want to see how Belichick handles this.
It's funny because I don't think Brady is special anymore. I think he's very middle of the pack.
I think he's very good still. I think what he does best is he knows how to game plan a game, and he knows how to handle the football. He's not a liability out there. He's very smart. I don't think he is the player he once was.
You can definitely trust him. I agree with that.
Yeah, look. Last year, you had Jameis Winston throw for over 5,000 yards and throw 33 touchdowns. He also threw for 33 interceptions, or 30 interceptions, okay? He is not – he was a liability with the football. He could put up a ton of yards, but that's because you were behind in games because he was throwing pick sixes left and right. Tom Brady's not going to put you in that spot. And I think with Bruce Arians, he's going to put him in spots where he's not going to look like that elite player, but he's going to still look like a very good player.
And that's why, like, Tampa Bay is such a good spot. Is I think even by being what I think will be average, that's a dramatic increase because he won't throw the interceptions, and he'll still throw the 30-ish touchdowns, even if it's a little lower. When you take care of the ball, it's still a dramatic improvement. So I'm with you all the way. I think Tampa Bay will be the better team. I'll be incredibly interested to watch what New England is. But I just thought we had to get into that. Stroz, I don't think there's a whole lot else we need to hit. A couple questions on Twitter. What of course, of interest interact with anything we've done today at Brendan Riley _@ Adam R. Stroz. And the only other question I want to ask is, how do we feel about the drinking and podcasting? Because I don't know if I've ever done this before, Stroz. How do you feel? What is your experience with this version of Brendan?
I love this version of Brendan.
A little more loose.
Yeah, he's way looser. This is the guy who. So there was this guy that I loved, and then there was this guy that I absolutely fell in love with.
Oh, wow, I see how it is. You don't like sober me.
No. I love sober you. I'm absolutely in love with lubricated you. I think he is the best you. This reminds me of me half getting naked at a certain draft party where we were throwing footballs poorly.
So that's the only other question is I want to know how we feel about lubricated as Stroz puts it. Brendan at Brendan Riley _ Adam R Stroz. If I could say your Twitter handle. But that's going to do it. You got anything else?
No, sorry if you guys heard any background noise. That's what happens when we start drinking. I open up Windows on my computer and things happen.
And we are working on a new system because Stroz is stuck at home. So going to be a learning experience over the next few weeks, but it'll only get cleaner and cleaner as we go. Thanks for listening. This is the Practice Squad.